are we good? Let me just make sure this is on. I think we're good though. Let's see. Are we live? We seem to be. We seem to be live. Hello, everybody. Let me show you this. Hello from Texas. Let's see how clear this is. There we go. Look at that. Let's go this way a little bit. Look at that. Beautiful scenery, beautiful background here in my lovely pool. And it's lovely to talk to you today. About time. It's been a week or so since I've done one of these live streams. We're in the UK last. I've got my watermelon. I've got my watermelon here. Let's do the old taste test. Fruit here is always so much better. Yeah, that's so good. Juicy. That's so good. Yeah, love that. So, I've got things I want to talk to you about today. There's a couple of things on the agenda. Thank you very much for joining me, if you are joining me live. First things first, we're going to talk about the scholarship fund. I want to talk about staying fit and healthy, the tactics, the approaches that I've taken here whilst traveling. I want to talk about meeting Tia from Healthy Vegan Mum and what that experience was like, finally meeting her in person after years knowing each other, after she came through my program. I want to talk to you about my new favorite fat loss snack that I've been eating lots of lately. I want to talk to you about cravings. I've got some advice on cravings today. And of course, I want to tell you what I've been up to in Texas. First things first though, the scholarship fund. Thank you to everybody that signed up. This was a fantastic opportunity to join Vegan Slim and Sustain at a significantly reduced price using that $10,000 scholarship money. Sadly, it is now closed. So that's it, done and dusted. I did one last year, about this time last year. I've done it again in August this year. We'll see if this is an ongoing thing, but it certainly won't happen again for a year. And I just want to commend those that pulled the trigger and those that were able to make it happen. And I can't wait to work with you all. I've had some fantastic interactions with the folks that have already come through the scholarship program. I announced this about 10 days ago, so we've already had 15, 20 people come through, and the results for the first weekend just gone, for the first lot of scholarship folks in 10 days ago. They've just done their first week on the program. The results are fantastic so far. We've got people losing £2, £3, £4 and upwards. We've got people already seeing improvements in terms of relationship with food, even though it's early days, and cravings and establishing good habits and feeling positive. Nothing amazing is going to happen in the first week of a program, but really, really positive. By the way, guys, those that are watching me live, what's this wind like? Because I was worried about it, but I don't know if there was this written in the stars for me, this one, because it's been windy for about the last half an hour, and I've been looking out here like, where am I going to do my live stream? Where is this going to interrupt the microphone? Where's this wind going to gust and take my camera flying off into the pool here? And lo and behold, as soon as I press record, it's gone really calm, so that's a bit of luck, isn't it? But let me know in the comments if you can hear me okay anyway, and the wind isn't too distracting. So yeah, thanks and congratulations to everyone that signed up with the scholarship fund. I look forward to helping you get some amazing results. Let's talk about meeting Tia. So yeah, that was awesome. When did I meet Tia? So we landed on Tuesday, and I'm going to tell you what we've been up to in Texas aside from this shortly, but we landed on Tuesday. We did our interview with Tia for the YouTube channel, which the feedback has been amazing. It's already had 2.5 now, I think, 1,000 views, which is fantastic. Oh, thanks for confirming, Jessica. It sounds okay, does it? Thanks, that's good to know. Thank you for confirming. And what was I gonna say? Yeah, and so, sorry, we landed Tuesday, spoke to Tia, went over Tia's house and recorded the YouTube live on Wednesday. Then we did a private training, which is exclusively for my clients. So if you're in Vegan Slim and Sustain, check out the Facebook group there where I mentioned the private training, which that was a really interesting conversation and a little bit more advanced than the stuff on my YouTube channel. We took it to deeper levels there, and it was focused on the mental and emotional aspect of this journey and taking lessons that Tia learned through Vegan Slim and Sustain and beyond, and hopefully giving my clients some ideas about, yeah, again, the more advanced sort of aspect of the mental part of this whole process, which, you know, it's not to be underestimated. It's a key fundamental component of this. But yeah, the live stream itself on YouTube, the interview, podcast, Q&A type thing has been amazing, and that's been very well received. So if you haven't checked it out, it's the latest video on my YouTube channel here. You can go and check it out. Highly recommend. There's lots of amazing advice that she shares from her story there, so it's fantastic. But on a more personal note, what was it like meeting her? Fantastic. I mean, we went out for food the next day as well. And I can tell you, you know, from those 5, 6, 7 hours spent with her, that in terms of personality, as I expected, I didn't doubt this, certainly congruent. And, you know, full disclosure, 6 or 7 hours with someone in person is certainly not enough to see every component of them. But she's treated me with nothing but respect and welcoming. She's tried to host me more than I've allowed her to, but she's wanted to show me things and take me to places. Take us, George and I. As you know, George, my photographer, videographer, and now friend, who I'm traveling with here. And, you know, she's been so accommodating with George as well, who was a total stranger to her. She's been fantastic. She made him, you know, hummus and avocado and cucumber sandwiches the other day. And, you know, that's, you know, to her, obviously it's through me, but to her, George is a total stranger. So she's been nothing but accommodating and respectful and really, really helpful to us here, and getting really enthusiastic about our visit. As I joke with her, she might be more enthusiastic than George and I were, bless her, in giving us sort of recommendations of what to do and where to go and that sort of thing. She's been absolutely amazing. So yeah, meeting her was a great experience, and frankly long overdue. It's been, yeah, probably 4 years since she first joined, about 4 years, slightly less than, since she joined Vegan Summit Sustain, since I've known her. So yeah, but that was great. Yeah, so we just went with some food, for some food with her the next day. A place called Baldwin Creek Cafe in downtown, slightly south of downtown Austin. Well, that's a good place to go and eat. You know, they got lots of vegan goodies. Like this stuff isn't always the cleanest, but you can do clean meals there. The lovely tofu scramble. But yeah, it was a fantastic experience meeting her, and I'm sure I'll see her before the trip is up anyway. But in terms of where we are right now, I'm at Big Bend. I think it says somewhere here, Big Bend National Park, which is West Texas. So it's 6 or 7 hours drive we had from Austin yesterday. We did it all in one day, which was mental when you think about it, but totally a no-brainer for me. I've got good endurance on the road, so I can drive for that long and not lose focus. And we just wanted to get it done in one day. There was nowhere appealing to us to stay overnight. So we're here for, yeah, so we were here last night. We did the Lost Mine Trail in Big Bend National Park last night when we arrived. So we literally just drove in all the way from Austin, stopped a couple of times to get gas and whatnot and some light bites. And then we came here and we came straight out on a hike yesterday evening, which was just stunning. It was beautiful. And we saw the tarantulas, and we saw, you know, a bunch of wildlife and some birds of prey and whatnot. Couldn't tell you what they were. Looked like eagles to me, but I'm certainly no twitcher. I'm no expert. Some deer, and it was just really like the views were fantastic. Got some great footage, some great photos and whatnot for the social media stuff, but just on a personal note, it was fantastic being up there. A nice break from the dopamigenic life that we live nowadays, right? Certainly if you're in a town or a city. But no, it was really nice. And tomorrow or the next day, we're not entirely sure yet. I think San Antonio is probably on the cards, and we'll end up back in Austin in a week and a half's time, where we'll fly back to London. Definitely Houston at some point, and NASA, that will certainly be happening. I'm curious to go there. But yeah, probably San Antonio tomorrow or the day after. But right now we're enjoying Big Bend. This morning we went over to the Santa Elena Canyon, which is, I think that's on everyone's bucket list when they come to Big Bend, and that was beautiful. Again, this place is hot. This place is, someone just said it in the comments. Yeah, Texas is crazy hot right now. Stay hydrated. Yeah, absolutely. You can see me drinking water here. We're slugging it back. Austin, I can't flash the comments up because I'm not on StreamYard. I made a mistake with that, didn't I? Music Monster Man says, Austin looks like a great day. Not in Austin now, my friend. No, out in Big Bend. Super fun city, so much music and booze. Lol, yeah, that's not for me. But Austin's an interesting place. I don't think I could live in Austin. I don't think I could. It's a little bit edgy for me. I don't think it's perfectly my cup of tea, but I could go there and appreciate it. And yeah, no, there's parts of it that I love. But yeah, we've had an amazing couple of days in. We had 4 or 5 nights in Austin before driving down here yesterday. So it's fantastic. And we'll be back there at the end before we fly back. As I say, I'll probably see Tia once or twice before we leave and hang out in Austin some more, film some what I ate in the day videos and that sort of thing there as well, and just chill out before we fly back. So that's kind of the plan, and it's, you know, I had the first week or so of this trip planned, but the rest of it is sort of slightly up in the air in terms of where we go next. But like I say, I think San Antonio is on the cards. Everyone is telling us, everyone local here is telling us, you got to go to San Antonio, you got to do the river walk, it's really special. The question is how long we'll stay in San Antonio for. I can imagine it being interesting, but perhaps not for more than a couple of nights, so we'll see. And I want to get over, as I say, to Houston to do NASA and whatnot before we go back to Austin before going home. But that's kind of the plan. And am I enjoying it? Am I having a good time? Yeah, it's fantastic. It's my 7th, would you believe, visit to the US. I haven't been since 2018, for about 5 years now. It's up there. I've had some amazing trips to the US, road trips and whatnot in the past, but this really is up there. It's, you know, it's probably too premature to say it's number one, but it's up there. You know, it's not far off a 10 out of 10 for me. You know, this is, I think a lot of people have messaged me saying, oh, you're on vacation, that sort of. I'm not on vacation, we're working. George and I have just been pumping out stuff. We've been working really, really hard, but it has been such a pleasure to work here, if that makes sense. All the stuff I'm doing right now for social media that I'm getting here, I'm still, you know, talking to my clients every day and whatnot. I'm still doing coaching calls and whatnot, maybe not as many as I would usually have on my schedule back in Bath, but I'm still doing them. But in terms of sort of striking the balance between work and play, it feels virtually effortless here. It's just been, yeah, it's been fantastic. And we've just had the right dose. I mean, I'm just looking, I don't mean to look distracted, but look at this. This is what I'm looking at. Instead of looking at you guys and the screen here and the comments, I should really be reading the comments. Look at this. It's amazing, isn't it? So, yeah, striking the balance between work and play has been very, very easy here. That hasn't been a struggle at all. So that's the plan, but yeah, having an amazing time, and it's up there. Like I say, we'll see, give it a couple more days and maybe I can make a bolder statement as to saying, yeah, this is my favorite trip to the US of all. But so far, so good, that's for sure, and it's certainly up there. What do we want to talk about next? What is next on my little agenda here? Yeah, staying healthy and fit whilst traveling. Well, the fitness part is actually much easier, because for the first 2 accommodations we had in Austin, George and I had access to a gym. And so it wasn't, you know, there wasn't heavy weights necessarily in there or that sort of thing, and didn't have all the equipment in the world. But frankly, for hotel gyms, they were very, very well kitted out. I've just realized I've got to eat this watermelon because there's ants crawling all over the bowl trying to get in there. So I've got to be pretty sharpish with this as I talk to you guys. So good though. Yeah, fruit here is so much better, as I remember from previous visits. But yeah, so in terms of the fitness aspect and the exercise, that's been no problem. Like I say, we had that, whatever it was, 4-mile hike yesterday. And by the way, there's a very big difference between a 4-mile hike on flat terrain and 4-mile hike with 2 of those miles, you know, ascending upwards. But, you know, we've been active anyway. Probably not as active as I would be if I was visiting a European city, because you do a lot more driving in the US. As anyone that's visited the US will know, or lives in the US will know. And you've been to also Europe, so you've got the juxtaposition. Like, in terms of cities in Europe, they're much more pedestrianised, much easier to walk across. You can't really do that as easily here, but the step count has still been relatively high. I think we did 13,000 yesterday, for what that's worth. And then most days we've done between 7 and maybe 10 or 11,000. So it's still a really decent amount of steps. Plus then going to the gym pretty much every day and doing miniature, because we're so busy, so doing sort of short, sharp miniature versions of workouts, not with, you know, the most extensive equipment available to us, but making the most of it and not using that as an excuse, not using vacation as an excuse. And I always say to my clients, in terms of trips and vacations, they should be a break from your mind, but not a break from your health. And that doesn't mean you can't occasionally, we had a G&T one night. I've had one G&T since being here in 6 days, but which is certainly not me of the past. One G&T, and I mean, we're going to come on to the nutrition component in a minute, but just to make clear here, my philosophy going forward, I'm practicing what I'm preaching here. This is by no means that I just accept a write-off. And, you know, subjectively, looking at reflections in the mirror, looking at photos and what over the last couple of days when George and I have been filming stuff, I'm literally as lean as when I came here. It's only been 6 days, that's not 5-6 days, that's not a great amount of time, but I'm the same level of leanness. So in terms of, you know, just accepting like sometimes I used to, certainly, and many people do currently, that a trip or a vacation needs to be a write-off. I don't like that. I don't like that. You can make it work. Some trips and vacations and holidays will be easier than others. I appreciate I'm not traveling with kids, so that's a huge advantage in terms of prioritizing, my own stuff and my own needs and my own goals and my own desires. I appreciate there's a lot of people at home watching this that simply won't resonate when I say that I can go off and go to the gym for a couple of hours every day. Well, not for a couple of hours, but you get what I mean, every day, and I can go to the restaurants that I want to go to. There'll be people that don't resonate with that, and I get that. And that is a huge advantage for me. I can't lie about it. But still, this starts with the attitude and the philosophy of I'm going on vacation, and it is not just an excuse to go and eat a bunch of rubbish. And I've done that before. What you realize is that's not the stuff that brings you joy on vacation anyway. It's cool to try different things and have a bit of naughty stuff and indulge a little bit, but it's stuff like this. This is what makes the vacation. It's stuff like this. It's doing it with good people like George in there. It's meeting people like Tia and the random people we've had conversations with on the way. It's, the beautiful hiking trail that we did last night. It's the amazing work that we've done, the content that we've produced that we're going to release over the coming weeks and months. It's just, and that's really exciting to me. And that is the vacation for me. That's where the fun comes from. That's where the adventure comes from. It ain't from food, it ain't from a bit of pizza. That ain't gonna do nothing for me, bar 3 seconds of, oh, that's pretty rich compared to what I usually eat. And it's like, wow, yeah, that is potent, it is really strong, but it's so short-lived. And this other stuff to me is far more meaningful and far more long-lasting. These are memories that are gonna stay with me forever. I'm not gonna remember the pizza I had here. That means nothing to me nowadays. And that's where we wanna take you. So in terms of the food, so the fitness has been absolutely no problem whatsoever here. It's been a very active trip so far. In terms of what I'm doing with food here to keep myself in check, that's slightly more challenging, especially down here, right? Because we don't have access to lots of the healthy restaurants that we have back in Austin. But first night we arrived, we had sushi, for example. Sushi is such a fantastic thing to scope out if you're in a pinch and if you're struggling. Sushi is available in most towns and cities, airports. There's always a place that does sushi, right? And you can just get vegetable or avocado rolls. Now, this so happened to be a vegan sushi place, so they had all sorts of stuff, and they had like deep fried sushi and all sorts. And, truth be told, we tried some different things there. We tried some of the richer things, but we also got a bunch of rolls that were just carrots and just a bit of avocado and a bit of cucumber in there, and they were absolutely delicious. It was called Nori, in downtown Austin, or slightly north of downtown rather. And that was, it was absolutely fantastic. Where else? Juiceland. We've been to Juiceland twice in the couple of days that we were in Austin as well, and that was fantastic. We made a lot of our own places because we stayed in a hotel the first night, but after that we stayed in our apartment. We had a little apartment with a kitchen and whatnot. So one night we did wraps, one night we did sandwiches. When we drove down yesterday, we did hummus, hummus sandwiches, with hummus and avocado sandwiches, with a sort of spring lettuce mix with Dave's Killer Bread. We've had Ezekiel wraps, right? I should put them on my Instagram with seitan and a bunch of veggies and a little bit of that Credo queso sauce, which is super clean, super low calorie. So, we're doing a lot of our own stuff as well. Like I'm sat here, we bought fruit earlier, we bought a watermelon, we've got a kitchen in here. We're not eating out tonight. We're going to do a little bit of a bean concoction here with the limited equipment we've got. And that's how we've been doing it. Lots of fruit, lots of juices and smoothies. We haven't really had, bar meeting Tia for brunch on day 2 of the trip, we haven't really had I almost want to ask George, because I can't remember. I don't think we've had one traditional breakfast. I don't think we've even eaten anything that you would consider a traditional breakfast, because we'll just go to Juiceland, or we'll just start the day with fruit, or we do sort of accidental intermittent fasting. We just get out and about because we've got to be somewhere, and then we just have a bit of a larger lunch later on. So little tricks like that have just helped. I think, especially in the US, breakfast is lethal here, right? So we just don't partake. I'm sure we'll have pancakes one day. We attempted to go the other day, actually, and there was a huge queue, and I said, classic egotistical fashion, I said, Ryan Adams doesn't queue. For anyone that knows me in person, that's a classic, like, Ryan Adams doesn't queue. Oh, goodness me, so pretentious. But no, I can't. What's the point in queuing, right? It's supposed to be customer service, right? Why would I queue to something I have to then pay for? It doesn't make any sense to me. I want the service now, right? Maybe I'm impatient, I don't know. But queuing for a restaurant, I've always found a very bizarre experience, because I'm the one there going and giving my money, so I'm not going to queue to wait to go and get food. So we went to Juiceland that day instead. So we were saved from having pancakes by the availability of Juiceland in Austin, and we had, what do we have? We had a smoothie each there, and George had a pretty clean sort of 7-layer burrito, I think it was, and I had some vermicelli noodle tofu thing. again, a little bit of oil in this stuff, but super clean compared to most people's vacation food, right? Certainly compared to whatever we might have had instead, pancakes and whatnot. So waffles, etc., etc. So look, we're going to indulge a little bit, and we had pizza one night. And we had tacos the other night, and the tacos were not bad actually, but they were probably not perfectly clean in hindsight. Well, I knew, never mind in hindsight, I knew this at the time. So we haven't been perfect, but there's been enough good in our diet, and there's been enough activity to sort of offset that extra 100 or 200 calories I'm probably eating a day now versus what I would do in my normal routine at home. There's been enough extra activity in my routine with the trail walking, with the hikes, to actually offset that with the regularity of gym sessions. I go to the gym more frequently in the US at the moment than I do back at home. I go 3 times a week at home. We've been doing it more or less every day almost here. Does that make sense? So I think it's this acceptance that the next couple of weeks for me are not going to be absolutely perfect, but there's going to be periods in the next couple of weeks where I'm going to still make very perfect choices, and they're going to be very similar to my plan at home. But I'm not going to come here and think that it's realistic that, you know, I'm going to go to grocery shopping every day. And now if I wanted to, and if I was in a weight loss phase, and this might be the caveat that you guys want to consider, if I was in a weight loss phase and I wanted to, I probably would never stay in hotels. I'd probably make sure I had a kitchen the whole time, which actually bar 2 nights here enough. 6 nights, 5 nights, 6 nights we've spent here. We've actually had kitchen. It's only 2 we haven't. But I'd make sure that I had bugs everywhere here, a kitchen the entire time. And that way I know, okay, everything's under control. And I'd really limit the eating out, but you know, George and I are not trying to lose weight right now, so that affords us a little bit more leeway. Again, you might not resonate with this, but that doesn't mean you need to be literally in your, you know, have an Airbnb and you must have your kitchen every single day. You can eat out with the strategies we've suggested. Maybe give yourself every week that you're on vacation, you're on a trip, maybe say, okay, I'm going to have 3 meals out this week. And that's not such a degree to whereby you'll gain weight from those 3 meals out if the rest of your diet is pretty clean. That's not enough. Now, if you're doing it every day, on the other hand, you might be adding 100, 200, 500, 700, 1,000 calories to your daily diet if you're eating out every day. So you've got to be careful. Of course, it depends what you have. And then even when George and I are eating out, we're going to the juice stands, we're going to places like sushi. Not every day, not everything is perfect, but it's pretty damn good. It's pretty damn good, it must be said. And so overall, there's kind of this semblance of balance that you strike. Now, where this is scary for people, and when I talk to my clients about, you know, how to manage trips and vacations, and we come up with a more specific game plan for them. This is a little bit vague because it's a generalist video, but even when I come up with a specific meal plan for them, clients are really doubtful and initially uneasy about this because, well, why wouldn't they be, I suppose? Because it seems very chaotic. It's like, well, how will I know what is the right balance to strike? How will I know what to select on the menu without you telling me, like you usually do with our meal plan, right? And this is where self-trust is a massive thing. And this is where experience, if you don't have it, is very intimidating. But this is where experience is a massive thing. You're going to have to accept the trip and a vacation as a litmus test for how much you've changed, how much intuition you can apply in the moment. And that is daunting and that is scary, but there's no way to shortcut that. And the good news is, if you master this next trip you go on, even if it's not perfect, if you come back and you can say to yourself, well, at least I didn't gain weight. All right, I didn't lose like I did at home when I was before vacation on the plan I was on, but at least I didn't gain weight. That's going to give you a level of confidence and trust and intuition and experience to know how to navigate the moments, to know where your boundaries are. It's almost like you have to get your fingers burnt, or risk at least getting your fingers burnt a little bit, to actually know when you might be straying too far when you're on holiday, vacation, etc., etc. Does that make sense? So I think we'll move on. That's probably a good 10 minutes just on this subject, but that's how I'm doing it right now. Those are sort of just nutrition and exercise tips, you know, to stay fit and healthy whilst away. You know, you can do home workouts and whatnot. If you don't have a gym like we do, I've even bought resistance bands just in case, but you can do home workouts and whatnot. So there are ways around this from the exercise perspective. And if you're exploring anyway and getting lots of steps in, that's fantastic. That's more than enough exercise for a vacation and whatnot. You don't need to do any extensive HIIT workouts or bodybuilding routines or anything like that whilst you're away. You'll be back to your regime at home soon enough, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And plus, if you are doing some of those extra steps, you can, like I say, because you're exploring, easier done in cities than in rural areas, admittedly. Well, not necessarily, because you might do loads of hiking like we are in rural areas, so yeah, it can go both ways. But you're going to offset some of those slightly poorer food choices, some of those slightly richer things, but just don't let those be a daily thing. So you might say to yourself, oh, okay, I've eaten out, I'm on vacation, I've eaten out the last 2 nights. that might be a time to actually buckle under and say, okay, you know what, the next 2 days, I'm going to make sure everything is a home-cooked meal. And I'm going to do that because we've got our kitchen here. And then go out to eat again after that, once you've sort of put the work in and done those 2 good days to ensure. It's all about stopgaps. It's all about creating, it's like you need checks and balances with yourself so you don't stray too far whilst you're on vacation. Does that make sense? Otherwise, all rules go out the window. Next up, as I'm eating watermelon, I want to talk to you about my new favourite fat loss snack, as I've said I was going to. And no, it's not watermelon, would you believe? It's not watermelon. And we had this last night. We had some of this last night, George and I. But even before I came away, I had this particular food, I think, I want to say 3 times in the 7 days in the build-up to my trip here. And it's this, popcorn. Popcorn. Now, I think it's probably obvious to say that popcorn with butter and popcorn laden with oil, and you can do toffee popcorn and caramel and all sorts of stuff. They do chocolate popcorn and all sorts nowadays. That stuff is incredibly calorific. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about corn maze that is air popped, no oil, maybe a little bit of salt. You can even do a little bit of coconut sugar or something like that. And this stuff is so low calorie. It has such a low calorie density. You can eat so much of it. And you haven't actually consumed all that many calories versus other things. And so this is why at the moment, popcorn is my new favorite fat loss snack. I'm loving it. Lots of my clients do it. It's easier done in the US because Whole Foods do an air-popped, oil-free popcorn that you can just throw in the microwave, so it's much easier to do in the US. There's nothing really that I've discovered in the UK like that. If you're in the UK and you found anything like that, drop me a message on Instagram. I'm really curious to hear. But popcorn is just fantastic because the amount you can eat for so few calories when you make a really clean popcorn is amazing. In fact, 3 cups of popped popcorn is only about 90, maximum 100 calories, which is really crazy. That's amazing. That's 3 cups, right? 3 cups of popcorn, so a cup being probably about this much. Good couple of handfuls per cup. And that's about just making sure bugs haven't gone everywhere because they're all over me here. They're climbing up the watermelon bowl and all sorts. Luckily, I'm not fearful. So yeah, if you are wondering what to eat and you're trying to lose some weight right now, and you're wondering what to graze on between meals, you've heard me talk about fresh fruit, you've heard me talk about hummus toast. I just wanted to give another option. It happens to be the thing I'm enjoying most right now. It's popcorn. Brilliant. So voluminous for so few calories. Next up on the agenda, cravings. Cravings. By the way, actually, this might be the final thing on our agenda, so make sure if you have any questions, I do have to go soon, I don't have all night. But if you have any questions, stick them in the box below. If you're live anyway, just write them in the chat, and maybe I can get to 1 or 2 of them before I go. And I appreciate this was an impromptu live stream, so I don't think there'll be that many people watching me live, but I stand to be corrected on that. So yeah, drop any questions you've got about anything. Health, weight loss, plant-based nutrition, mindset related down in the box below, and hopefully I can get to those fitness related before I disappear. But yeah, the final thing I want to talk to you about is cravings. And look, I've produced so many videos on cravings. I could talk about cravings all day long. The particular point I have today is it's amazing with cravings. This is the lesson I want to share with you, and I'd be interested to hear if this resonates with you, if you can see this in your own experience. The thing about cravings is they're so much less about taste than a lot of weight loss beginners realize. And I think people are under the misconception that it's the food that almost puts this magic spell on them. And it's really disempowering because you're surrendering all the power to the food and you're like, it's the junk food that does it. And look, don't get me wrong, junk food is designed to do this. I'm just gonna move my watermelon bowl because the ants are just going all over it. They can have it, they're free to have my leftovers, that's fine. But let's stick it over there so they're not all coming over here whilst I'm trying to do my stream. Well, yeah. And it's way less about taste. It's way less about taste than most people realize. And yeah, of course, the junk foods have been manufactured, and you don't hear as often as people who are addicted to, potatoes, watermelon, and whole grains. Oh, Ryan, I'm just addicted to oatmeal. That said, I've worked with many binge eaters who will binge eat regardless of the food. They'll binge eat on oatmeal, they'll binge eat on potatoes. So it's absolutely true that it isn't just the junk food that does this to people, but I appreciate it is highly potent. But more so than taste, I think this is the thing people don't fully realize, and when they internalize this, it's really going to help them combat those cravings for good, is that cravings are so much more about familiarity than they are about taste. So much more about associations that you've got in your mind, certain feelings that you have learned, trained yourself to associate with certain foods, certain scenarios and certain activities. You know, we just spoke about popcorn. What better example of this is popcorn and movie night, right? There are all of these associations that we have from behaviors of the past that we've instilled, whether consciously, subconsciously, whether someone else planted them in our mind at a younger age, or we very intentionally made the decision to introduce these things into our diet into a great degree. And I've talked about, you know, how those episodes of Lost, the TV show Lost, do you remember that show many years ago? They were even more enjoyable, I thought, at the time, because I would eat these big bowls of granola whilst eating them. Just a massive bowl of granola, and I'd get a new bowl of granola every episode. And so I would hide away in the summer months at about 17 years old, and instead of playing out with friends, because I lived in a village miles away from everyone and didn't drive, of course, I would just watch Lost all summer long in the summer vacation. I just watch episodes of Lost or Prison Break or 24, Jack Bauer, CTU, and I just eat bowls of granola all day long, unknown to my parents, of course, or at the dismay of my parents. And that was part of Lost. When I think of Lost nowadays, I think of granola. It's still there, and I'm not tempted by granola anymore. But the association, I can still remember that being part of the story of watching Lost. And it's less about taste, and it's more about familiarity. It's more about pattern recognition. It's more about routine. It's those primed responses in our brain that we've trained so that when we're stressed or bored, we think of chocolate or whatever the weakness or the affliction is. Or when we go and sit down to watch Lost, it's like, oh, I've got to have granola. That's something I've built, and nothing else will do it. It had to be granola. Had to be granola. Then when I was doing Prison Break at university, it was more Domino's Pizza and Ben & Jerry's. It sort of scaled up. Granola wasn't too bad in comparison to that. Granola is really calorific, but compared to, Domino's Pizza and Ben & Jerry's, it wasn't too, and Pop-Tarts, right? It wasn't too bad. It sort of scaled up when I went away to university a couple of years later. But you get my point here. It's more about familiarity. It's more about patterns and routines than it is about the taste of a food. And of course, don't get me wrong, the sensation of eating a junk food is very powerful. And taste goes into the equation, and taste is part of the reason why we make the food choices we do. I'm not completely dismissing that, but let's not also underestimate the role of familiarity here. And the reason why this is so important to internalize is because when you can realize that so many of your food choices in those difficult moments are coming out of familiarity and not taste, you can actually put the burden of responsibility on you and not the food. Instead of pointing at the food, it's very disempowering to point at the food and say, that's the thing that causes me the problem. No, it's your relationship to that food. It's your story of that food. It's the habits and the patterns you've built around that food. And yes, the taste is very potent and is very strong, but it's not everything. And there's stuff happening on the back end, and it's your interpretation of the sensation of the food. It's your interpretation of the taste. It's the story of eating that food with the activity you're doing, or based on the feeling that you're having at the time with stress, boredom eating, pick me up, reward sort of dynamic. It's the story, the activity. It's the package that comes with food itself. It's not just the food item, it's the consumption of the food item and the consumption of all the thoughts and stories and limiting beliefs and fears and insecurity and stress and emotion, coping mechanism that comes with the food. But it isn't the food itself that does that, it's your brain's interpretation of that activity that installs all those extra stories on. So this is a recipe for disaster, right? Because you take a very moldable psychological mind and you give that junk food, it's going to be a nightmare because you're going to find all these terrible patterns and routines, so on and so forth. But this is why this is important to relay today, that it's not about the taste, because I think it's so disempowering to just think that it is about the taste and not understand that actually there's other things happening here. And once you realize you don't actually, this sounds wild to say to some people, this will sound wild, and I understand why, to be fair, but your junk food addictions right now are less about food and they're more about you. And that might be a bitter pill to swallow, but once you actually accept that, you can start doing the necessary work to change. rather than thinking it's just a food issue. You need to acknowledge that it's your stories and your interpretation, your relationship with food that is fueling this. And yes, it doesn't help that we have super potent junk foods available to us now. And yes, it might not be your fault that you were given those things as a kid, for example, and you learned that when you did your homework, you got ice cream. Those things are very unfortunate because they're not your doing, and now you know better. You wouldn't do that to yourself. You wouldn't if you go back in time machine to yourself, you wouldn't do that to yourself. But that's the situation we're in, and we have to acknowledge that it is a relationship with food as opposed to just food. And so, long story short, it has been my assessment coaching people on cravings over the last few years that cravings are far more about familiarity than they are taste. Taste matters. To us, it's more about the nostalgic experience of what a certain food brings because we've trained that so much. We are creatures, bikers racing across the sunset. Looks pretty cool. Or what's about to be the sunset anyway. Wow. It's amazing. Heck of a view here. If you are just joining me live, let me give you one more flash of this view. Isn't that wild? I know the lighting's not so good here now. The sun's kind of gone in. You can barely see me, but isn't that wild? Amazing. We're going to wrap up in a second anyway, but that's my point on the cravings front. Yeah, we're just creatures of habit. We all know this, right? And isn't it funny when I talk to people that binge and as I used to and have junk food addiction, so on and so forth, and give into cravings a lot, the food items they give into is so predictable per person. It's always ice cream, or it's always a certain type of cookie, or it's always vegan burgers. It's never usually a whole array of items. People have go-tos. And this tells you, this is exact proof of my whole thesis here, that it's more about familiarity than it is taste. Because if you're interested in taste, you'd go for a whole selection. Because you'd want to taste so many different things and you want those different experiences and the taste buds and the sensations to be like, oh, this is interesting. But it's not. It's about what's safe. It's about what's familiar. It's about what's comfortable. Internalize this and you'll have a better shot at actually doing the internal work necessary to stop having cravings. Not stop having cravings for good, that's a completely unrealistic objective for me to set you guys, but to actually get better control of them and work with them rather than them just dominating you. That's it from me. Thanks to everyone that joined me live. Thanks Lisa, I've just seen your comment here. This has been really good fun. I don't know if I'll do another live stream while I'm down in Texas. It's kind of hard with the setup I've got here and the limited equipment I've got here. But so many amazing YouTube videos to come soon that I'm excited to share with you. But yeah, thanks very much for your time. Jump on my Instagram if you want more tips and advice and whatnot, at Ryan Adams UK, and you'll be able to follow my adventures there, what I'm up to down here in Texas. And yeah, I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Okay, take care.